While CJ Stroud has not officially announced his decision to participate in the 2023 NFL Draft, it is safe to assume that the star, elite college quarterback who was a Heisman finalist for 2 years in a row is gone. And if he returns, you best believe that within hours of his announcement of his returning, there will be a video on this and what it means, because Ohio State already has several players, and I know that many of you who are familiar with this channel has heard me use this term quite frequently. Ohio State has a plethora of important players who are returning both on offense and on defense. On defense, you have JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, you have Mike Hall, Tommy Eichenberg, and Steel Chambers could make a return. There's been no announcement on the behalf of Eichenberg whether he's going to be drafted or not, to my knowledge. And Cade Stover just announced his return very recently to Ohio State, and the entire wide receiver core is going to be back for Ohio State, along with running backs Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson. And going back to defense, you cannot forget cornerback Denzel Burke and the incoming high-ranked safety transfer from Syracuse, whose name escapes me. There will be a lot of guys with veteran and college experience on this Ohio State team next year. And if Stroud decided to return, that he wanted another shot at beating Michigan, at winning the Big Ten and winning the national title, which I would say he's one of the best quarterbacks in the history of college football to not win a conference championship, not win a national title, and not beat his team's biggest rival. I mean, CJ Stroud is complete NFL legend material with his build, his mechanics, his mind, and who knows at this point. But it is very likely that he is going to indeed go pro. So, a little bit of opinion, actually a lot of opinion and a lot of discussion, because Kyle McCord has only started one game. Devin Brown only has 1 yard in an Ohio State uniform, and that is a yard on the ground, not even a single pass. And really, I wanted to open up to you, Ohio State fans. Who do you think is going to win the QB battle? And this includes CJ Stroud. Like, if you think that Stroud is somehow going to return and be motivated to win the Heisman and beat Michigan and win the Big Ten, please tell me down below that you think that that's the case, even though it is very unlikely. But the battle really is between Devin Brown and Kyle McCord. Kyle McCord is the presumed successor. He has more experience, and he is more of the build of quarterback that Ryan Day wants. He's more of a raw, pro-style, non-scrambling passing quarterback, while Devin Brown overall is more of... He's still much a pro-style quarterback, but he has more of an athlete's element to him. But he's a full year younger. He's only played in one game, whereas Kyle McCord has played close to 10 in his 2 years in a Buckeye uniform, including one start in 2021 against Akron. I was about to say last year, but it's technically 2 years ago. This is 2023. It's unbelievable. So there are a few articles that I am going to link down below, two from Cleveland.com, the other from 11warriors.com, and I'm going to read bits and pieces of these, look at Kyle McCord and Devin Brown's stats, and do all sorts of things. I also, though, I do want to talk about, like, just Ohio State in general and their reputation at quarterback. Because this 11 Warriors article, and this is where I'm going to start, is Ohio State is ranked very high in most early, way too early top 25 polls. I'll give you a hint. They're in my top 3. They are in my top 3. And this is presuming they lose CJ Stroud. I am not of the opinion that he returns. And even if Tommy Eichenberg and some of these other key guys decide to leave, they will still remain inside the top 3. the talent they have, and overall the amount of returning production that's already confirmed that will return is too high, in my opinion, to place them outside the top 4. And yet some have, such as USA Today and Sports Illustrated, which is what 11 Warriors is reporting on. They ask the question, where's the respect? And what I'm doing is I'm merging 11 Warriors' point here with a point of my own, which, newsflash, is losing CJ Stroud is huge, but there's also a very good likelihood that this is plug and play. You lose him, oh well, plug in another good QB, and with Marvin Harrison, Emeka Egbuka, and Julian Fleming and Cade Stover all returning, what you really have to worry about is replacing the production at O-line. The receiving core is going to be much better next year with all that experience. It just is. It just is going to be that much better. The question is the offensive line and pass pro. And the run game, I do not imagine it's going to be as disastrous as it was this past season. And by disastrous, I mean unhealthy. Because when it was healthy, it was churning at times, especially compared to 2021. So a lot of these schools, not schools, but a lot of these editors, and some of them work at certain schools, some of them talk about certain schools, journalists, pundits are talking about CJ Stroud is going to be very difficult to replace, and there are still some outstanding issues with the defense that took a step forward in 2021, 2022, but cratered against Michigan and Georgia. The Buckeyes will be replacing two-time Heisman finalist trophy CJ Stroud, and even with capable candidates, that's a significant loss. The article says, look, I understand. In 2 seasons as Ohio State starter, CJ Stroud statistically became one of the best quarterbacks in program history and leaves some massive shoes to fill. However, it appears Meyerberg, Forty, and other experts haven't done their homework on Kyle McCord and Devin Brown. Meyerberg and Ford are the guys who are talking about how Ohio State is just, the loss for CJ Stroud is just massive. And they're the 2 analysts who partook in their respective companies' ranking of Ohio State relatively low. And both are talented and far more than capable candidates. The only knock one can make against McCord and Brown is they have little to no experience at the collegiate level. But they're still 5 stars, 4 stars, and McCord has played in multiple games, and he has a similar QBR to J.J. McCarthy. Now he has better receivers and is, of course, going to look better in a passing game with better receivers and probably better development compared to J.J. McCarthy, but McCarthy's a top 15, top 20 QB, and to have similar statistics to him in your limited action is quite impressive. And with a whole preseason of work, with you being groomed as a potential starter, that's going to make McCord and Brown both that much better as they are competing. Still, even as a difficult season lies ahead with matchups against Notre Dame, Wisconsin, and Michigan on the road, which is just, by the way, that's very brutal. With Notre Dame and Wisconsin, I think they're both going to be better than they were this year. Same with Michigan and Penn State, who's also improving compared to past season at home. McCord and Brown's lack of experience shouldn't be enough to knock the Buckeyes out of the top 5. It could hurt them in multiple of those games, but Ohio State's supporting cast is amazing. Their defense, with what they return, especially at the front 7, should overall improve and become less of a paper tiger. And Ryan Day is so good at coaching QBs. I mean, Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud. Does 3 quarterbacks, one of whom in Fields is having success, given the fact that he is on one of the worst teams in the NFL, and Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace. There was a reason he was drafted high. He had tons of potential, and he played very good collegiate ball. We just didn't get to see what his full pro career would have looked like. And then CJ Stroud, I think, is going to be good at the NFL level too. Is that not enough to prove that Ryan Day is just great at developing QBs? And then the funny thing is these analysts, as this article writes, are talking about how, McCord and Brown don't have the experience, but then go on to say that Drew Aller is going to be this huge upgrade at QB, which, by the way, I don't buy. I think that Drew Aller, this might be of a very unpopular opinion, he could be a top 3 Big Ten QB. He could also be a middle-of-the-road Big Ten QB. He could very much, at least for this coming season, be like Sean Clifford. Like probably playing at a similar level as Sean Clifford did this past season or in the 2019-2021 season. He will not be as bad as 2020 Clifford. Don't even worry. That was just a nightmare. But, I mean, I think that these two quarterbacks, and I mentioned that part, like the respect part, because you can't worry about these quarterbacks. They were highly recruited coming out of high school. They're built for high-level play, and both are competing. Both, as these articles from Cleveland.com and 11 Warriors state, I mean, honestly, both of them were under the guidance of C.J. Stroud and the guidance of Ryan Day and the staff. And now, McCord and Brown are fighting for the job instead of the backup role, but, they complement each other. McCord always was, the kind of guy to ask C.J. Stroud questions, to be under his leadership. McCord could have, he could have transferred after 2021, but he didn't, because, that happens. A lot of 5-stars come in, and if they're not starting in 1 year, we're gone. He could have pulled a Quinn Ewers. For all we know, McCord could have, and he didn't. He stayed around. And it sounds like Devin Brown, though we don't know, but Devin Brown hasn't entered the portal yet. I don't anticipate it either, because he certainly can contend for the job. They're staying around. They want development. They're learners, they're leaders, and they're built for success. I mean, Kyle McCord, 6'3", 215 pounds, coming out of high school. Devin Brown was 6'2", 196 coming out of high school. Brown is already 6'3", 210 pounds. So you see the strength and conditioning program is certainly doing wonders there. And Kyle McCord has gained 7 pounds. He's 6'3", 222 pounds. I mean, these guys currently, not just coming out of high school, they were built for high-level QB play. Now that they're under the development of one of the best quarterback teams, like quarterback-centered, quarterback developmental teams in the modern college football playoff era of college football, they're built for starting and producing high-level play, and they're built for, I think, in the future, playing at the NFL level, either as a starter or a backup. All the cards are in play when you're a 4 or 5-star QB and you're being developed by Ryan Day. This is not Urban Meyer with J.T. Barrett anymore. And because Barrett started for 4 years by having, injuries in 14 and not starting the full year in 15, there's not 4 years of consistency and now you're hit with an unknown after Barrett goes undrafted because of his height and other, features where he wasn't, let's be honest, as developed as Haskins and as Fields and as Stroud were for the NFL. This is not the same thing. Fields played at Ohio State for 2 years, drafted. Stroud played at Ohio State for 2 years. Presumably, he's going to not play for the third and go get drafted. Haskins started for a year. He had a critical win against Michigan in the 2017 season where he replaced an injured J.T. Barrett, but he started for 1 year, went pro. And Ohio State hasn't had the same exact, stability at quarterback that J.T. Barrett provided for those 4 years. They've been replacing guys after 1 or 2 years under Day. They've been perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Kyle McCord ranked as a second-round projection by Brian Don coming out of high school. Devin Brown projected as a 2 to 3 round pick by Blair Angulo, who's a Mountain Region recruiting analyst, as Devin Brown did come out of Draper, Utah. Kyle McCord, of course, as we all know, came out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and at one point was considered a Penn State recruiting lock. But here we are. Kyle McCord, just to get to some statistics, I think he edges Devin Brown in experience and playing time. Actually, it's not that I think that, it's that that's a fact. But I think he edges Devin Brown when it comes to being the favorite for starter. Again, Ryan Day, Justin Fields was the exception to this. He had mobility. And as we've seen now in the NFL, he's using his legs a lot more at the professional level than he did at the collegiate level, which is heresy and shouldn't happen, but that just shows you how much Ryan Day doesn't like his quarterbacks running the football. Haskins rarely ran it. C.J. Stroud didn't run it in the entirety of 2021. He only ran it in 2022 against Northwestern when he had to because there were 50-mile-per-hour gusts, and Georgia because, listen, you never run the football. Georgia's not going to prepare for it. You open up a whole different opportunity against Georgia by, it's kind of like a secret weapon. Everyone forgot that C.J. Stroud had athleticism because he never ran, and they ran against Georgia. But Kyle McCord in his career has 606 passing yards. He completes 70.7% of his passes, averages 10.4 yards per pass. He has 3 passing touchdowns, 2 passing interceptions, and a 168.6 passer rating. He improved in passer rating from 2021 from a 164.6 to a 176.3. He completed 14.2% more of his passes from 2021 to 2022, 65.8% to 80%, but he threw for 200 yards less, and that's because he didn't start a singular game this season like he did last year when he started against Akron because C.J. Stroud's shoulder was rested and he was, kind of mentally gunshot. Ryan Day gave him that break, and that was the turning point where we went from seeing C.J. Stroud as maybe the first, above average or not achieving or low achieving Ohio State QB to now the C.J. Stroud that we as college football fans all know and love. Like one of the best football players in recent memory, one of the best quarterbacks in recent memory. And to go back to this competition that we have in our hands, Devin Brown is the superior athlete. He rushed for 430 yards in his final year of high school and 8 rushing touchdowns. And look, these two guys, overall, they're still pro-style QBs. Their play style is going to be very similar to C.J. Stroud's, and I think the article by Cleveland.com titled What Ohio State Football's Kyle McCord and Devin Brown Learned from C.J. Stroud's Daily Example, you're going to see a lot of that. Both have spent at least one season of their career on road trips with departing starter C.J. Stroud. McCord had that assignment in 21, Brown took it over in 22. Both players received one season's worth of peeks behind the curtain of what life as the Buckeyes starting quarterback truly entails. I'm now reading this article by Cleveland.com, and it states that McCord and Brown both interacted with them. McCord, him and Stroud really got to work together. McCord saying he tells me everything that comes with it, a good game, a bad game, how dealing with the media is, the pressure, and then it talks about how Stroud did the same thing with Fields. So there really is this succession plan that's in place, and if Brown wins it over, then good for him. But there's this whole idea from Ohio State quarterbacks under Day is, this concept of mentorship, leadership. You have the elite training along with it. You have the elite raw talent out of high school as well. You recruit at a high level, guys that have had good coaching. All these players here have always had good coaching. Like they have been coached well from the time they're young. They're highly talented. They have been gifted with the physical abilities, and they have used their gifts and their talents with hard work to become these players. So basically, what I think in this video that I'm doing, and again, these 3 articles, one of which I didn't read, 2 of which I read parts of them that I wanted to touch on, but I invite you to read all of them if you so desire. Basically, what I'm saying here is it matters to a certain degree, because losing a highly touted elite player like Stroud is always going to hurt. But in the grand scheme of things, this is just more of a process than anything, because Ryan Day has proven that his quarterbacks aren't a flash in the pan. Proven. You know, I'm a Michigan fan, so I almost hate to make this comparison, but Andrew Luck and Jim Harbaugh. Unless J.J. McCarthy wins the Heisman this year, and even then, looks more like a flash in the pan by Jim Harbaugh than anything else. That's not the case with Ryan Day. If what's the case with Ryan Day with a flash in the pan is a great defense, which he had in 2019, and was clearly built, constructed, and architected by defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley and Greg Madison. But when it comes to quarterbacks, Ryan Day, he has a reputation, he has a resume, and I think that Ohio State's quarterback next year, whether it is Brown or McCord, I'm not going to give a prediction on it now. It's way too early. But if I was, I would say McCord, just from benefit of the doubt, from the fact that has a year more of experience and he has a lot more statistics, a lot more game time. I'd say McCord right now, but an official prediction, I want to wait to get more info. But I would say at minimum, they're going to be second team all Big Ten. At minimum, I would say that at max, they could win the Heisman Trophy. That's a pretty high floor and a pretty high ceiling. So Ohio State, they will be in good hands regardless of what quarterback they have. I think regardless of what quarterback they have, they will be a top 4 playoff contending team. So need not worry about Ohio State's quarterback room and what's going on in Columbus. I think whoever starts at quarterback will be just great. If you like this video, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, click the notification bell, and comment your thoughts on this video down below. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys around. Bye.